Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining our last community engagement session for the master plan for Great Island. We are really all so happy that you're here. I'm Monica McNally. I'm on your Board of Selectmen, and I'm also chair of the Great Island Advisory Committee. And I know we have some members from the committee, so if you could raise your hand just so people will know that you're here. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? All right. I'd also like to recognize Becca and Meg and the whole Reed Hilderbrand team for their creativity, their hard work, and their partnership throughout this whole process. It has been an absolute joy to work with them. So we're going to cover a lot today, and for those that are here in person, or if you're watching on TV 79, thank you TV 79 for taping all of these. I want to encourage you, if you have any questions about today's presentation and you didn't get a chance to ask our experts, please feel free to reach out, or if you're watching this, feel free to reach out to the GIAC email. We're asking for your thoughts by June 1st to incorporate them into the plan. And with Memorial Day right around the corner, well, right around next week, I guess, just want to remind everybody that parks at Pear Tree Beach that you're going to need a beach sticker, and it's May 23rd, Linda? I think it's May 23rd, you'll need a sticker. So if you have a sticker from last year, it's good until May 31st. But if you didn't get a sticker last year, you're going to need to get one this coming week. You can go into Town Hall, room 110, or you can go onto the Park and Rec Department website, or you can mail your request in if you would like, but you'll need a beach sticker. And please also mark your calendars for this Tuesday at the library, at the Darien Library. The Darien Museum is hosting a talk with George Knight from George Knight Architecture, and he will be going over the buildings and the history of the buildings, and his team has been very, very instrumental in this whole process, so I encourage you all to join us in person at 7 o'clock at the library. If you can't, Jan had a great idea, but Jim Cameron's all over this, so they will be taping this for people that can't turn up at the library, but always nice to see you in person, so I hope you can. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Meg from Reed Hilderbrand. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Monica. Are you all able to hear us okay? Okay, great, we'll make sure we speak loud enough. So today feels like kind of a momentous occasion. We are almost at a year of working on this project. We have completed the vision plan. We are in the process of wrapping up or nearing completion on the master plan phase, and it really has been a tremendous experience. We are so grateful to you, the community of Darien, for your continued support and engagement and continuing to show up in the way that you have. So thank you all for having been here, for continuing to be here, and for being here today. We really, really appreciate your time. So just a quick snapshot on where we are. Today, we are doing our presentation here from 1 to 2 in the auditorium. That will follow with a session in the gymnasium, as we did at the last time, at the last community engagement workshop, which we'll have workshop boards and stations just the way we did last time, so that you all can circulate and go to each board and talk to team members about specific components of the master plan and ask questions, engage in dialogue. Please give us your comments and your feedback, and we hope that you all will join us there at 2 o'clock. Just a quick recap of where we are relative to the broader schedule. As I mentioned earlier, we did complete our vision plan phase of this effort. We are now approaching the completion of our master planning phase of this effort, which will be complete July 15th. And then zooming out, looking at the bigger picture for this effort, we are at the completion of this phase 2. We will then be looking towards an early access phase, which is really going to be about prioritizing vehicular access, parking, restrooms, basic wayfinding for the island. These are really a series of discrete enabling projects to really make it so that people can get to the island and use the island in all the ways that you were hoping to. And then following that, there will be a series of improvements that are really kind of on a different timeline. Phase 3A, it's more base improvements. It's about stabilization, shoring up the buildings, making sure that we have the right site amenities, utilities, invasive management, all of that. That's on a 5 to 7 year effort. And then for phases, that's for phase 3A and 3B. And then for phase 3C, that's more on a 7 to 25 year effort. Again, all of this pending community support and where we all end up with, buy-in from the Darien community. So Becca's going to speak to this in more detail, but I wanted to just give you a quick, brief overview relative to that. As we move into the master plan, part of what's been so wonderful about this almost 12 months that we've spent with you now is just the incredible amount of learning that we've done, both through site visits and observations and conversations with you all in our public engagements and focus discussions. You'll see, as you did at the last community session, we will have all of the reports from our consultants on the tables available for you all to review, including the ecology report, including reports from our accessibility consultants. Basically, every consultant that we have has reports that they've issued, so that'll be available for you all to review and to please leave comments or ask questions. That has then in turn really led to us being able to develop a shared set of vision and principles for this master plan. And we always like to step back before we go into too much detail, which really is just to say that the whole point of us celebrating Great Island and working on a master plan for Great Island is to make sure that we can identify what are the components of Great Island that are special to you, that we can make sure that we support, preserve, enhance, and really make sure that we carry forward. So a lot of those are about your experiences of Great Island. So our intention here is to make sure that for this master plan, we are weaving a mosaic of experiences for you all that's about providing you a holistic governance model, but really bringing those characteristics of what makes Great Island so special forward and preserving those. So point number one is really to make sure that we are bringing people to the island. We want to make sure that we're preserving the character, the diversity of all of these existing landscape zones. We want to make sure that we're prioritizing your pedestrian experience because we know that the majority of how you experience the island is on foot. We also want to make sure that we're preserving the historic fabric of the architecture, and especially those buildings with architectural significance. That's really important. Additionally, as we work to envision a future for Great Island, we want to consider impact and make sure that how we concentrate activation on the island has the most minimal amount of impact to the island. That involves minimizing the presence of automobiles, but also balancing that with finding just the right amount of parking so that we can make the island accessible to those who want to drive there. And then lastly, really making sure that we are enhancing these moments of expansion, contraction, enclosure and openness, discovery and congregation, all these characteristics of Great Island that make it a truly special and magical place. Those tie into the goals that we have identified both in communication with you all about what we want to see happen on the island that reflects what we've heard from you all. So we want to prioritize and bring forward opportunities for community events, opportunities for access to the water. You have over 1.5 miles of untouched, beautiful Connecticut coastline at Great Island, which is something that's really remarkable. We also want to make sure that, for those of you who visit Great Island for recreation, for activation, for walking, that we are providing you a logical and beautiful sequence of walking paths that allow you to really truly experience all the components of Great Island that make it so unique and special. And then lastly, part of what makes Great Island so spectacular is that there are so many different choices you have. You can choose to walk to the ecological area that has some sensitivity. You can choose to go and walk along the coastline. You can choose to have access to the water. You can choose to go to the stables. You can choose to experience the Great Lawn for events. So really, the intention here is to multiply and diversify the number of choices and opportunities that you, as the community of Darien, have access to on Great Island. So you'll see here, this is the current version of the master plan. I'm going to hand it off here to Becca and George. They're going to speak to both long-term and short-term and long-term opportunities within the island, both from a landscape and building perspective. So I'll hand it off to Becca next.
Thank you, Meg. Thank you, everyone, for being here. It's turned into a beautiful afternoon, so we'll be inside for a little bit longer, but hopefully you do have a chance to get out this afternoon. So we are really excited about where we have found ourselves with the island and its future. And to be clear, with all of the help from you and our experts and the focus group committees that we've had a chance to meet with, you'll see in this plan a lot of clarity. In the immediate term, the hope is really that the changes are about reinforcing that which makes the island function and be beautiful. So that means converting the domestic to an open space so that a number of the conditions right now, which are hazardous or difficult or definitely not accessible, or buildings that are falling down, those changes or conditions need to be addressed. And in the immediate term, that's where a lot of our energy is going to go. Along with that, you'll see this idea that near to the approach, as part of your welcome and arrival, you come across the causeway, you go uphill, the greenhouse greets you, you'll go off down the hill, start to park. As soon as possible, you get out of your car. If you arrive on foot, you'll approach on the southern causeway, and you're kept very distant from cars during your entire experience. Then the idea is that there's some beautiful views, there's a new meadow up around the orchard, and you can see the stables, and you can walk, and there are trails that surround the outcrops, right? So they're beautiful views, lots of places to play and to explore. The woods will get enhanced, and you can see down to the polo field, you can see across to the stables. There's a fair amount of openness in this part of the island. And a lot of the concentration for meeting and activity is going to be, organized in this area. Because that really supports the past use. It builds off of the past cultivation there. And then there's the lowland, right, which you first encounter as the polo fields, and then the wetlands and the carriage house. And you're in the woods for a brief moment, and you can pop up and experience the great lawn that looks out on the Sound where the main house is. And if you want to continue to explore, in this eastern lobe of the island, much more is protected in terms of ecology. And in terms of gatherings and community events, they're really concentrated around the State House. And so there's a sort of quietness. The moments for gathering and excitement and experience of the coast are pockets on this side of the island. We're going to walk you briskly through the future now. Of immediate concern and a lot of animated conversation in the last 6 or 7 months is how do people get onto the island more easily and safely? We are continuing to study these two options. The hope, if possible, is that we can build for the early access the same route that is part of the long-term vision, because there are all sorts of efficiencies with that. And that will preserve a pedestrian-only circuit on the south. But so this early access project will include some planting, conversion to meadow, a little bit of care of trees and shrubs that need attention because they haven't had attention for a while, introduction of bathrooms so that people can take care of their basic needs when they're on the island, and then parking. As we shift into the larger project, this is not the exciting stuff of the open spaces that connect all of us and bring us together, but it is the essential stuff. These are the base improvements that enable us to open this island to you, right? So site-wide improvements for pedestrian access, safety improvements so that if something happens, everyone can be taken care of. a need to start to really manage the invasives and take care of the hazards that are in all the plants that have been basically neglected since the family left, and even a little bit before that. And then a set of utility improvements related to septic and sewer and electricity to allow the kinds of uses that we see. The pictures that you see up here of roof and envelope of the buildings also signal the kind of falling apart that's been happening. And so we really need to take care of those structures. They're extraordinary structures. And if we don't spend money to shore them up now, it's going to be much more expensive. And there's going to be a loss of the kind of capital that has already gone into the investment of having those on the island. So that's not so exciting to look at or necessarily experience. What we really wanted to share with you today is to take you on a walk through the future of the island. And the way we've organized that future is into these brightly colored project areas that you see in a mosaic above or on the screen. Simply put, we've really let the island and its outcrops, its topography, tell us what should happen where. And we've used the landmarks of those sensational buildings to create the sort of anchor activities and character of those spaces. So we'll begin with the arrival at the Great Meadow, where the greenhouse is, where you're welcomed. And you'll have plenty of time this afternoon to look at the detail here. You don't need to read the screen if you don't want to, don't work too hard. But just appreciate that the goal here is we want to capture everyone at that knoll at the top, give them beautiful views, make it really easy, keep the cars isolated to this portion of the island, and to start to revive the cultivation character of the greenhouses. And we can imagine in a longer term future that new glass houses are returned to the greenhouse building. Those restrooms that we talked about as part of early access, those will be built in the root cellar that is the kind of subterranean tunnel that you see when you clamber around there, you take a walk. Having accessibility is fundamental here, and we really want to make sure that the paths are safe and enjoyable. So there's a walk through the woods. Some of you may be aware that there is an old road that used to weave between the oak trees, so we're going to turn that into a path. Then there's another path that hugs the edge of the meadow. There are spectacular views there. We're very excited at the idea that we might erect a family shelter there, so a place for families and caregivers to watch their kids play and have shelter from the sun and take in those spectacular views. And then we really want to have beautiful, accessible links from there on foot to the stables and down to the polo field. Just a quick sort of sketch of right now, right, the remnant paddocks. You can see the root cellar in the background there. And then a future with these, in some ways, very modest changes of an introduction of a pedestrian network that is safe and easy to move around. A few additional trees. There hasn't really been new tree planting there for a long time. And so we need to clean up, but we also need to refresh, right, revitalize. There'll be a kind of modestly scaled terrace outside of that root cellar so that if people, like a small farmer's market kind of thing, or if people want to have an education event or come together for a small gathering outside, this is an excellent moment for that. We see this very much as kind of almost the lobby, the outdoor lobby of Great Island. George is going to speak a little bit about the future of the building itself.
So the greenhouse is part of the original suite of buildings and is in actually quite good shape. It has served as a residence until very, very recently. And we foresee a great opportunity in using it for something like a conservancy office. Alas, there are no large rooms or spaces inside of it, so I don't know that it would make as much sense for a public gathering space, but it would be perfect for small office space, and its position more or less at the very beginning of one's entrance to Great Island makes it opportune to do so.
So then, as you stroll along, you come to the stables and the polo field. And this, in some ways, is the heart of the island in terms of the community and its future, and it just really significant architecture. And so we're super excited about some immediate but fairly modest improvements that allow us to start using some of this building and the forecourt outside of it, and to connect it in a safe way to the greenhouse and to the polo field below. So you can see this idea that there's a little bit of parking behind an area for what we call back of house. That's what BOH stands for, but the things that we all have in our garages to take care of a facility like this so that it just stays out of vision. One of the moments here that we're really excited about is this idea of what we're calling Oak Hill and the overlook path. The thing that we realized, it's sort of a back of house area now, but when you stand in that moment on the island, you can see out to the Sound, you can see to Scott Cove, and you can see to Ziegler's Cove. It is a spectacular location that gives you a prospect in all directions. And so we see enormous potential in creating that as a beautiful point for people to stroll and spend some time. We are introducing paths that allow you to kind of explore the outcrops, and then we wanted to just show a simple portrait of how the stable, which right now just functions as a kind of backdrop to the island, could, with very few changes, start to be activated as a place for people to convene. We hope in a way that there's an ability to have a little bit of food here so that you can refresh yourself, get a cup of coffee, or have a snack. And be able to walk easily down to the polo field. George is going to talk a little bit about this idea of an early way to put some use. Just to share, like, the investment in full conversion and renovation in these larger structures is not something that will be an immediate part of the plan, and that's because we really want to take time, just as they did at Waveney, to build support and the relationships, but we don't want to not use the building at all, while we need to take the time for those relationships and partnerships to be found, right? So this is an idea that when you go for a walk, when you're meeting people, you do need to refresh yourself. So just like their bathrooms as part of the greenhouse project, here we're imagining a way to get something to eat.
So here I think we can all be grateful to the Zieglers and their magnificent horses for leaving us this beautiful, beautiful building, the stables. And those of you who've been there know immediately that one of the most impressive rooms on an island full of lovely rooms is the forecourt itself. So defined by beautiful ironwork and stone piers that one enters into. The paving surface is not what it could be, but it's a terrific space, and I think in some ways it's the first imagination of a use of that building that would be rather modest effort and energy to put into it and have significant return. We have Darien would be in very good company to start to utilize this as a cafe relative to other stable buildings that we've seen examples in Europe and England particularly. Well, I'll show you some examples. But the stable building itself, you all who have been there will know it. The forecourt is in the lower portion of the plan here, a large central block and then two wings where the horses were housed. Again, we want to change very little of the architecture. It's really magnificent and is in rather good shape, although really set up for a stable at this point. So we could envision a modest alteration taking advantage of maybe a single wing and more or less closing to the public the central block and, in this case, the right-hand wing or the eastern wing, wherein one can find a generous size cafe, probably with bathrooms. It could be even smaller than this, but we foresee a great opportunity in a fairly modest alteration, adaptation of this building, and capitalize on these wonderful loggias that exist in the forecourt and such to allow really active use of that as a food and beverage amenity.
And then spilling down into the polo field, it just wants people to be running around in that field, right? And so you can imagine it tends to get a little bit wet right now. The fact that it was used for dressage and lots of horse activity means that it's not perfect for people, so just a little bit of improvement to remove some of that older infrastructure and make the lawn not quite so swampy is that basically what we're proposing, and then paving a couple of trails so that for people who need shore footing, which many of us need that shore footing, you can walk down from the upland conditions and from the stables down to the polo fields. There is a proposed small edit to the historic walls, a little opening by Ziegler's so that you can spill out. If you take that southern causeway on a walk and you want to just come to the polo field, you'll be able to cut through. There's some safety benefits in terms of public safety with that opening as well. But we really think it'll make the experience of being on the island much more fun, particularly for people who don't want to go for a long walk, but just want to come and meet up with people. The other thing we wanted to share here that you can start to see is the relationship of that possible future playground with the lawn below. And we think that there's just a really lovely spot for some play in this moment, because it will be very discreet from any other location on the island, but it's really convenient to the bathrooms and to the parking and to the polo field. And so we think this sense of a kind of very animated family kind of moment in this part of the island makes a lot of sense. As we shift to the center of the island, we're calling for the moment that upland area, Scott Hill, and then the Carriage House, which you're all familiar with, and the wetland. Here is this stepped or terrace condition, which we really think is a much more intimate set of spaces for people to feel kind of cradled by the island, and for the ecology and some of the lessons about the land that we all share and the environment of Long Island Sound to be made more clear. So we're super excited about the idea of, with the removal of the White House, this incredibly beautiful narrow lawn opening up, and the possibility, there's a very sweet shed there that we want to keep as a kind of little playhouse, but an expansion of a possible nature playground here for learning and for people to share about nature and just have fun in this area. Very easy to keep your eyes on someone in this part of the island. So this is a view of that space now. It is a completely beautiful glade. We are imagining that very small edits will enable it to be wonderful for families and children to play around and explore. Shifting now to the Carriage House and wetland area. This has been a kind of back of house area for the family. There's been a lot of debris dumping into these wetlands, just leaves and things like that, nothing too bad. But we really do feel that that lowland is an amazing opportunity to enhance the ecological health of the whole community and the island itself. And so letting those wetlands be cared for and be expressed as wetlands, and introducing boardwalks like you have in some of your other parks in town, that we feel like is an amazing addition to the understanding of this island. Additionally, we're not allowed to have activities in wetlands because they are regulated spaces, and so this is trying to take something that is a boundary or a constraint and turn it into an amazing opportunity to explore. And so being in this sheltered condition with the trees above and grasses, and we hope a lot of different butterflies and dragonflies, should be a pretty positive experience. The Carriage House itself, many of you in our other excursions to the island have had a chance to be in there. George is going to talk about its potential. It is a fabulous structure and a great building that we are saying we want to commit to immediately and open up for gatherings and use. To do that, we need to make sure that it's safe, so we have to make some accommodations for fire safety and things like that. So there's a slight widening of a pad here, but that pad can serve for education groups and other kinds of gatherings outside. Some of the kinds of interpretive signage, which we mostly are going to keep quite modest, will be found here. And then the potential of a phenomenal exhibit and event space.
Indeed, so the Carriage House really does set up beautifully for public gathering and use. And a couple of ideas that we have tested, which we feel are very promising, include a number of different types of gathering and public presentation. So the existing plan is shown on the left. The beauty of this building is that it is a large, voluminous, capacious, open space. So there are, for instance, no columns in here, and allows really terrific venue for public gathering and such. So one thought that we had is that it could become a gallery or exhibition space. And in this case, we're showing very movable and alterable partitions that could go up and down, that could allow community art exhibits, for instance, to appear there. We're also showing on the upper part of the plan on the left an inclusion of a new bathroom, which we think is going to be essential for this to serve the purposes we're talking about. We foresee an exterior door. So, for instance, if the Carriage House proper were to be closed, that the bathroom could still be open through a side door that you're seeing at the top of the plan. Alternately, we could put that new construction of a bathroom and some storage space, maybe administrative space, inboard of the existing walls if we wanted to reduce somewhat the space that's available on the interior. But it still, as you can see, sets up, I think, very promisingly for exhibition spaces and gathering. Another possibility could be for a music venue or a lecture venue where we think we could fit something close to 150 people. It could be associated with a very long-term future of an event space at the Manor House, a wedding grouping of buildings. But here we're showing a perhaps even larger package of bathrooms at the uppermost portion of this plan that would accommodate, again, a larger volume of people.
And then we take you to the north outermost edge of the island. And that this is the part of the island that we've learned has just enormous ecological significance. The eagles are there, and we really are proposing only the most modest changes, and changes that I would say support nature and human positive relationships. So in the immediate term, we want to stabilize that old bridle trail that's there. We want to introduce two little mini circuits at the north and the south with overlooks out to the coast. In both directions, it's just spectacular, the views out to the ocean, and you really feel so transported, so far away from everyday life. Here, you're so far away from any car ever. There is a provision, should something ever happen at the beach, for a fire truck to be able to come here. But basically, this is meant to be pedestrian, quiet, birds, insects, trees, shrubs, and the water and the sound. So this is a fairly simple set of restoration proposals. I think going forward, we imagine that the community may want even more nature-based endeavors here, but in the immediate term, we're going to concentrate our effort in these two targeted moments, and we'll be seeking to remove the Phragmites and take care of the wetlands that are there, which will also improve the views out to the sound and the conditions next to the shellfish beds. So this is a current view. It's super beautiful already. And then we imagine, because it needs to be in accessible condition, that we'll pave. We don't want to pave that full wide width of the tracks. It'll be a little bit narrower, but we do want people to be able to walk abreast and have conversations and good moments together. There will be a few signs so that the rules of the space are clear, but for the most part, this will be very much a nature preserve moment on the island. The beach also brings you to nature and brings you close to the water. It's an exciting moment and sort of a gem of a space on this island. The goal here is to preserve the sweet beach cottage that's there. We can't use it for a number of reasons, but it is a kind of backdrop, and there is, I think, a poetry to the structure itself. So it will stay. We will have to build, as I said, a little provision for the fire truck, so there'll be a kind of end to the larger public walk and a transition moment here to these quieter nature trails. We anticipate most likely removing the changing room building, and we are studying, or will begin studying more seriously, whether or not we remove the historic seawall. That is going to take some work, and we'll need to engage a different consultant to understand exactly the best future related to that. I'm not going to take questions right now, but I'll. This is a view of the existing condition, and you can see all that infrastructure that is part of how the family used the beach. One of the things that has come forward as we think about the future here is that this is probably the best moment on the island for being able to have kayak access and the kind of connection to the water that people really hope for. There is a safety challenge if we retain that seawall for having boat access here, but this has been identified as the safest and most ideal moment for having that kind of kayak ability to come in or go out. So that is something that will continue to need study, but this is a portrait of how we can imagine the future of the beach. And then, I think to the moment that everybody most remembers, other than the stables on the island, is that spectacular experience when you come around the estate house and you see out into the Sound. And there's been tons of conversation about what is the right future for the building itself. There are people who want to demolish it, and there are people who want it immediately converted into spectacular sort of relais chateau hotel experience. I think at the moment, we are just going to hold steady with preserving the structure, and we're going to start to take care of the parts of it that need immediate attention, but not propose putting a lot of money into it, but instead put money into the lawn and the paths and the ability to have events and celebrations and gatherings all around the exterior of the estate house. So the immediate investments are about introducing a walk so you can have a circuit that takes you along the edge of a kind of coastal walk, right? And then we do hope soon to renovate some of the terraces. There is an idea that we have a beautiful location for an event tent that could come up as necessary. The idea that the old tennis court is already a sort of stabilized lawn area, so again, if there needs to be heavy use, we want to keep it lawn, but it can be kind of concentrated in that area where there's already firm ground for lots of people to have a lot of activity. A little bit of improvement to the parking and back of house area, and we'll be making some edits to the overgrown vegetation and planting some new easy to care for sort of garden conditions and shrub conditions to make that space just feel as taken care of, but also sort of simple to navigate around as possible. In the future, it is imagined that it's possible that the kinds of weddings and events that people have speculated about could happen in the estate house, if that's what the community deems right, and a great partner to do that work and organize those activities is found. So this is a photo of a space that most of you are probably familiar with, and then a small set of changes that allow people to walk around, that lawn to become a little bit more useful, some supplemental plants to start to care for the future. Right now, many of the plants on the island are starting to age out, or they're very close to their sort of peak maturity. A little bit of editing of some of that forsythia and some of the other shrubs which keep you from being able to see the Sound. We really want connection to those views to be spectacular here. And George is going to walk a little bit through some of the possible futures of the estate house.
Those of you who have been in the estate house, and even those who haven't, would imagine that it's filled with grand rooms that indeed do set up for public functions that could occur. I'll note, and I'm sure you've been tracking, but the upper row on top of the slides puts the time frame of this. So this would be more future oriented, but the the manor house could, in some future, we're imagining it's more than a decade away, be utilized for some kind of public venue for special events and such. There is adjacent to it, and we would like to make the experience even more so, what is called the Playhouse, which was built for the vehicular children, which is a lovely structure and can be brought into this sort of suite of buildings. It has a discrete location, and as such could serve as a small rental residential accommodation that might be associated with a more built-out event house or have more immediate functions in the near term.
So there's already a parking lot just for this building. Some of you know it as the Pink House. In our historical research, we discovered that they called it the Playhouse, so that is why we're calling it the Playhouse. But we do imagine that for some of these buildings in their future, there is a need to have a little bit of parking so that they can be used. That's true for the Estate House. In general, there will be no cars on this part of the island, but for just functional reasons, we do need to have some parking here. And so using this existing parking court, which is super discreet, and tidying it up is also part of this project here. So again, very simple set of adjustments. I think at some point, this feels like a great place to have a picnic, smaller gatherings. It's much more intimate. It is sort of the size of a family home, but the views out past Hay Island are just amazing. And you want to talk?
Sure, and this is a photograph of the building. This may not be as familiar to people because it is, as Becca said, it's kind of discreet and taken off of a common walking route, but it's a lovely structure that as I mentioned, could be utilized as a residence in some form if there were to be a future development of the manor house, or more immediately, I think it could serve as an office space. It is fundamentally domestic scaled, although there's a big central room that we believe was the playroom for the family that goes straight through the house and has terrific views with a porch facing Hay Island. So I think that there are opportunities to utilize this. It seems to be actually in quite good condition, and is a building that we're really excited to bring back into the larger suite of buildings.
And now we're wrapping up our walk, taking you back to the parking. You've walked past Siegler's Cove and come to what we're calling Cove Peninsula. This is the area where the boathouse is now. Many people go and stand right outside of the boathouse already. It's a paved asphalt area. It's not particularly charming, but we think with the removal of that asphalt and basically very small changes to the planting and paving, it can become a beautiful place for people to take in views and wave to their friends who might be hanging out on boats. We are imagining that we'll remove the little shed that's there and that we will introduce a possible future lookout so that there's a kind of spectacular place to look to the west and maybe even take in the sunset. So this is the existing condition there now, which many of you know quite well, and then this is that proposed future condition. We really want to integrate it into the circuit of spaces that people get to enjoy. The boathouse itself is a structure that we're going to keep and imagine possibly in the future that there might be a partnership with someone who wants to have a restaurant or some kind of boat education facility. There are a lot of challenges with the use of that building, and so we need a really ambitious and excited partner. So that is a sort of forthcoming future to be explored. And so we've now taken you for that walk around the island, and I think what we are really excited about at this point is that we feel that the changes that have been arrived at are in some ways fairly modest, right? We really think that with the proposals that we have shared with you today, the basic character of the island will remain completely intact, but it will start to function for many different kinds of walks and discoveries and community gatherings without losing its fundamental nature and identity. Also, we are preserving choice for the future in terms of much more ambitious partnerships or explorations. But I think within the next 5 to 10 years, we don't see many of them likely, right? That said, I'll go into talk about next steps right now. And as Meg introduced at the beginning, we are coming to the very end of our master plan effort. The next phases of all of this will take us through a fair amount of time. The immediate is the early access to get some of those key infrastructure and parking and bathroom facilities set up. And then most of what we talked about today is involved in what we're calling here the Phase 3A base improvements, a little bit of Phase 3 near future approach we covered today, and that's going to depend exactly on the degree of enthusiasm and funding that becomes available, as well as the kind of operational and governance capacities that get developed by the town to take charge of all these futures. I think some of the longer term, more bold futures are further off, and so that's indicated in the Phase 3C here. And just so that you all understand, our effort at Reed Hilderbrand is to have this set of conversations today. We're hoping many of you will stay for the next hour and talk to us. I forget, there may be 12 or 15 of us today to engage with you, hear your feedback, answer any questions. We will be refining the plans and ideas that we've shared with you today, moving into an exercise where we cost those possibilities quite carefully, both in terms of their capital costs, but also their operational costs, so that the understanding of what is really capable, the town is capable of, is really a measured and serious part of this exercise. We will hand this plan off to GIAC in the middle of July. We are hoping very much that they'll approve it, bless it. It will be sent to the Board of Selectmen. We hope it gets blessed by them, and then it will be brought to the RTM, probably in early fall, just the way summer schedules work. In tandem with that, we are hoping to be able to push ahead with the early access. I know there's enormous appetite in the community for more members of the community to be able to be on the island, and so that work will still be slow, but we will be moving ahead with plans for that early access while the approval for the longer term, bigger master plan is happening. And then just to assure all of you that this isn't just sort of playing around with Legos and thinking about what might be fun to build, we understand, right, that nothing can happen without excellent governance and the sort of care and running of all of this. And so, as you're aware, the town has directly led the vision plan and the master plan. For the near-term approach, the town will also be leading that. We imagine that an effort will begin fairly briskly to start to develop a kind of conservancy or friends of group that, just like Waveney or Todd's Point has, that starts to share some of the governance and sort of day-to-day leadership requirements for running an island of the caliber of this island. And in terms of long-term possibilities, many of you have sat through our presentations. We've offered a lot of possible paths there. I think a truly unusual thing about Darien is its volunteer sort of culture and the degree of sort of self-work that you all do. And so I think because you're such a lean community, there's a little bit less pressure on you to launch a serious sort of second conservancy. Almost every other project we've worked on like this, there is a large conservancy that gets founded immediately. I think you have proven again and again with your projects that you can do things in a leaner way, and so that is the immediate approach. But we think, just like Waveney and Todd's Point, that fairly quickly there will be the launch of something like a Friends group or a conservancy to help the town see this through. And Mayor of Great Island, Tony, has just done the most extraordinary job caring for the island this last year or so. He will need supplemental team members to help as we expand the kinds of things that are happening. And one of the things that we are mapping out is exactly how, as we unfold or invest in the capital improvements and changes, we keep the staffing up to the built part of the island. So now we're come to the end of this part of the conversation, and we're incredibly excited to welcome all of you into smaller conversations and to share all the background information that has gone into this vision. There's a lot more detail and knowledge that has sort of led to what we shared with you today, but we wanted to keep the conversation kind of tight so that we don't run out of time. And with that, just the biggest thanks and congratulations to you, because you have the coolest space, you know, off the coast of Connecticut. It's amazing, your island. So thank you so much for all your time and energy, and don't stop contributing to Great Island as we go forward. Thank you.
It's all about but then they built
I'll start to talk to you. I heard him.
Well, you had to get then 25.